Hello, everybody, and welcome into Senior Living Live. My name is Melissa. Thanks so much for being with us. We have a very, very special webinar for all of you today. It's called Living with Dementia, and you will get to hear from individuals who are doing just that. They are living with dementia every single day. You will get to hear about the challenges that they face, and you'll also get to hear perseverance, ways that they have been able to minimize the effects of dementia in daily living. Now, not only will you hear their stories, you will also be able to ask them questions at the end of our presentation. And to do that, all you have to do is scroll down to the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. Feel free to type your questions out there, and I am more than happy to read all of those questions to our panel here today. Now, this webinar will be hosted by myself and the Arbor Company alongside Jan Bays of Dementia Action Alliance. Of course, it is a wonderful organization and a resource dedicated to increasing awareness about dementia. We talk about them all the time. Jan, it is great to have you with us today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and our guest panel.
Absolutely, Melissa. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for having our guest panelists and on the behalf of Dementia Action Alliance and giving us the opportunity to share comments on this documentary, Alzheimer's, What You Can Do. I'm the board chair for Dementia Action Alliance at this point. I live in Indiana and am a physical therapist. I'm a care partner for my mother-in-law living with dementia and for my mother in the past. And I also work with a wonderful group of people living with dementia and assisted living. So I want us to waste no more time, but let's get started with a brief film clip that will introduce the program, and then we'll move on. I'm going to share my screen, and there it is. Extra thing there, you know, when I share my screen, it shouldn't be there, but there we go.
Everyone is afraid of the A word. It's a bad word, Alzheimer's. And the story always is that there's nothing that can be done for Alzheimer's, nothing that can be done for dementia, and that you're going to just end up in a wheelchair in a nursing home. There are many things you can do about dementia and Alzheimer's that are effective and available now to help change your life story going forward. Yeah.
This documentary offers a very different perspective about Alzheimer's disease. Experts around the country talk about the research that they've done and the things that they're doing to help people live a better life in spite of their dementia diagnosis. Alzheimer's is a life-changing diagnosis. There's no doubt about that. But there are things that you can do to live a better life. So today, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from true experts, from people who are actually living the experience of dementia. We're going to watch some brief film clips from Alzheimer's, What You Can Do, and then our panelists will comment about the particular points that we're going to be talking about. But before we do that, I want to introduce you to our distinguished panelists, my friends. So first of all, we have Chuck McClatchy. And Chuck retired at the age of 61 after being diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. He served over 21 years in the Air Force, and then after that, he worked for the state of Arizona for another 21 years. Since he has his diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, he has become a fierce advocate for living well with dementia. He talks around the country to people about his experiences living with dementia. He hosts a wonderful podcast for Dementia Action Alliance called the Dementia Life. He works with our other support groups. He works with Dementia Friendly Nevada and the Cleveland Clinic to enhance the lives of people living with dementia. Chuck is a member of our DAA Advisory Board and the Speakers Bureau. Give us a wave, Chuck. Okay. And then next we have Lori Shearer. My friend Lori was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease and frontal temporal dementia at the age of 55. At that point, she decided to use her life to support people living with dementia. And oh my goodness, has she been a busy lady. These are just some of the things that Lori does. I don't know where she finds all of her energy. She is a dementia mentor, and she is active in many, many support groups. She has a website where Dementia Days, where she shares her experiences and encourages other individuals and families living with dementia to look at ways that they can continue to live well. Lori is a member of the DAA Board of Directors and also a member of our DAA Speaker Bureau. Give us a wave, Lori. And then we have Mark Timmons. Mark was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease when he was 48. Prior to that time, he retired. Prior to that time, he was a tax accountant and was active in civic organizations such as the JCs. He's used his experience to turn his efforts to supporting people living with dementia, supporting Dementia Action Alliance, and being an advocate to eliminate the stigma that's associated with dementia diseases. Mark has just recently orchestrated a very successful event, which was the Italian Festival. And he did that to raise money for scholarships for the DAA, Dementia Friendly Indiana Conference, Living Well with Dementia, that will take place in September. It was an event enjoyed by all. The other three of us on the call certainly wish that we had been there to be part of that event. Mark is a member of the DAA Advisory Board and our Speakers Bureau. All of these panelists are successfully living life with purpose and meaning. And that's such an important thing. And it is such an important message that they're going to be able to share with you all today. So with that underway, I think we should jump in and take a look at our first film clip. So our first speaker is going to be Gayatri Devi. Dr. Devi is the director of the Park Avenue Neurology Clinic. And here's Dr. Devi.
The story that Alzheimer's is inexorable and progressive is untrue. We have patients with Alzheimer's who've been stable for 10, 12 years. I have lawyers with Alzheimer's. I have physicians with Alzheimer's. I have hedge fund managers with Alzheimer's. Most patients will do well with treatment.
Okay. So my panelist friend, Dr. Devi says that most of her patients do well. I wonder if these questions will open a hefty conversation. Was this the message that you received when you were diagnosed? And is this your experience now? Chuck, would you like to start?
Sure. That was not my experience. My experience when I went to receive my diagnosis, I don't have Alzheimer's or any kind of dementia in my family. So it was something that I hadn't even thought about. And he brought me in and sat down and he went over my records and my testing and all of this. And he just kind of says, you know, with all of this, you need to go home, get your affairs in order. You have early onset Alzheimer's disease. and basically I'll see you in 6 months. And we received really no information whatsoever concerning dementia, how to live with it, nothing. And take into account that this was 8 years ago. So when you researched dementia, all you came up with was pretty dark things. With the type of dementia I had, my life expectancy was 3 to 5 years. And, it really takes you to a really dark place, because there was nothing around that gave anybody hope. And I felt like I was strictly by myself, that there was nobody else in the world that was dealing with what I was. And I think that a lot of people go through that, but it would be so nice if they would have a booklet they gave you that had all the different types of dementia and the websites you could go on to receive help, to know that there are other people out there. And it would help so much with people when they actually start accepting what is happening to them, and have them be able to make that decision. I do have this, I can't do anything about this, but I can still live my life, and I can do it on my terms. And I think that's what people need to hear, that they can live their life and continue a great life, living it on their terms. And that way you can be proactive about what happens to you, and you're not reactive. And I think that's so important, especially with the families too, that they're involved from day one all the way through, so everybody understands what's going on through that whole diagnostic process. And it's hard to get through it, and sometimes you come to a crossroads, and on that crossroads, you have a choice. We have a choice in our own life. You can either decide to be positive and go ahead and live your life, or you can go the other way and just accept it and not try to fight, just let it go, which is extremely sad when people do that. But I think more information and more positivity needs to be given at that diagnostic process to give people some hope.
Mark, you're unmuted. Was your experience similar to Chuck?
Yeah. Chuck's experience really resonates and is relatable. My personal experience was a little less harsh in that it wasn't go home and get your affairs in order, quote unquote. It was, you have early young onset Alzheimer's disease. I suggest that you kind of put a bucket list together. And if there are things that you hope to accomplish or want to experience, you need to start crossing them off the list and getting them done. And then the follow-up to that was, and that he hoped that estate planning and, with my background with estates and trust taxation, he hoped that all of that was already in place for me. My experience since then, I wouldn't say I do well. I find my experience to be a roller coaster. There are days that I do well. There are days that I don't do well. There are days where the roller coaster occurs within the single day. Parts of a day I will do well, and parts of a day I don't. Dementia is progressive. In some people, it can be a slow process, a very slow process. My most recent neurology appointment my neurologist was actually, reaffirmed that he believes I have early onset Alzheimer's, as the battery of tests and scans and MRI and PET scan allow him to reach that assessment. But that, he says, the one thing I can't figure out is, if you're at least 5.5 years into your diagnosis, why aren't you further along in the why aren't you sicker, basically? And research really hasn't got a factual answer to that question, because the answer to that question aren't found in medical records and in test results. The answer to that question has to do with more intangibles, staying connected, having relationships, staying mentally engaged in activities that bring you pleasure and satisfaction, doing things to reduce the stress levels in your life. This is what I said to my doctor was, and I get a lot of that through my involvement in the Dementia Action Alliance. And these are the things that have helped not stop the progression, not reverse the progression, but slow it down so that most days I am able to function, at a reasonable level. I can't do taxes anymore, but I can still go out, and appreciate a sunset and take a photograph of it that comes out half decent. I can't handle paperwork and bills anymore. But I still find the things and focus on the things that bring me pleasure, that are not stressful, or that can help bring my stress levels down. And
Well,
that's
you certainly did a great job of organizing the Italian festival, Mark. Wonderful. Lori, do you have anything additional to add to these wonderful comments that Chuck and Mark have provided us?
Jen, when I was diagnosed, I was a very career-oriented person and was making lots of mistakes and confusion. And I went to 4 doctors, and each time they referred me to somebody else. The 5th doctor, we drove 2.5 hours to Philadelphia, and the doctor turned to my husband, not even to me, turned to my husband and said, "You need to get your affairs in order, spend time with family and friends now, and come back in 6 months to see how much she's progressed." He then gave Roy a prescription and said, "You're going to need these to calm her down." We never got it filled. There was no encouragement. There was no literature, no support, and no connections to any kind of support groups or other people living with dementia. We have dementia friends who have been living with their diagnosis as long as 20 years, and they're still productive. They're still beneficial and happy. Life's different. Life's different. It's not the same as it used to be. I can't do a lot of the things I used to do, but I still can do a lot of things. The tone the doctor sets at the time of diagnosis is usually a doom and gloom. Go home and die. Get ready to die. Do your preparations. That causes depression, lack of hope, and just total confusion. It makes your stress level higher, which makes your dementia worse. I've learned that I can live a beneficial, full, and really exciting life in spite of my dementia, because dementia does not define who I am. It's merely a small part of the many facets of my life. It happens to affect my decisions and changes that I now have to learn to deal with. I'm a wife. I'm a writer. I'm a scuba diver. I'm an educator. I'm an international speaker. And I love to travel. And oh yeah, I also have dementia. At diagnosis and going forward, doctors need to provide encouragement. They need to offer avenues of engagement, such as DAA, get involved in support groups, get involved with people who really are the experts, and that's other people living with dementia, because I've learned more from Chuck, Mark, and our many other people, friends living with dementia, than I have from any doctor. But the doctors don't do that. They focus on our inabilities. But for me, living productive means focusing on what abilities I still have and counting my blessings for every ability I still have.
Well, certainly, Lori, you, Chuck, and Mark are testimony to what you all said, because you all are doing such great things with your life every day. And we're going to move on to our next film clip, because we're going to listen to the physician talk a bit, but then our experts are going to tell you the way it really is here. So we're going to listen to Dr. Dale Bredesen here. He is the Chief Science Officer for Apollo Health. And we're going to listen to two brief film clips, because we really need to listen to them both to set up our discussion.
So many things have been backwards about the approach that people have taken to this, to dementia, to this Alzheimer's disease. And one of the things was, well, since there's not much you can do about it, then just wait as long as you can. That's the opposite of what should be done. My research shows the very first step is actually prevention, and for people to get into this before they get symptomatic, and to understand that the process goes on for years, and therefore you don't want to wait for symptoms. And if you do develop symptoms, that's okay. Get in as early as possible. And get on active prevention. I see people who are in early stages, who have relatively early symptoms, they all get better when you do the right things. So the earlier, the better, which is true for virtually all chronic illnesses.
Okay, we're going to.
So many things have been backwards about the approach. Here's what you need to eat. Here's what you need to do as far as sleeping. Here's what you need to do for your stress level. Here's what you need to do for your exercise. Here are specific herbs and supplements and things like that that you're going to take. Here are appropriate pharmaceuticals that you need to do. Here's appropriate brain training that you need. And then here's appropriate follow-up, because one of the things about this, you don't just treat and stop.
This is the part I'm really looking forward to. Dr. Bredesen tells us some of the things to address to live better with dementia: your food, your sleep, stress management, supplements, exercise, medication, brain training, follow-up. All of these things have been found to affect all of our lives. But what we're going to listen to now is Chuck and Lori and Mark telling us about strategies that they've found to be effective to help them live a better life with their dementia. So panelists, it's all yours.
I think that what Dr. Bredesen lists, food, sleep, stress management, supplements, exercise, medication, brain training, those to me sound, I mean, those are common sense guides to live a healthy life. It doesn't, I mean, let's put it another way, that was discussed privately earlier, in that, you know, I can train for a marathon And with food, proper food, sleep, stress management, supplements, and exercise, but I'm still going to have dementia. It doesn't, I'm still going to have early onset Alzheimer's. The strategies that I find more effective, like I mentioned in the earlier piece, are the mental engagements, the social activities, the support from being around, people who understand, the other people that are living with dementia. I've told people in the Dementia Action Alliance recently, coming out of that last appointment with my neurologist last month, that the benefits that I gain through the engagement, my engagement with Dementia Action Alliance and all the activities I'm involved with in Dementia Action Alliance, I think that is what has, I think that has given me many more good years. I won't say it's prolonged my life, but it's prolonged the quality of my life more than any medication or supplements, and food, even food and exercise. Although I do watch what I eat and I do exercise, but I think it's more the engaging your brain and engaging your heart in activities that make more of an impact.
We are holistic beings, aren't we? And well-being is beyond our bodies, but includes our psychosocial and spiritual selves also. Lori, do you have some comments to add?
Yeah, dementia is full of lots of challenges and confusion. There's no doubt. And living healthy is great. We should all be doing that, no matter what age and no matter what our diagnosis is. But dementia doesn't go away because we change our lifestyle. However, there are things that we all can do to stabilize the challenges and stabilize our condition, such as Mark said, socializing with other people with dementia. That's number one. Number two is have a purpose. When I was first diagnosed, I went home and I'm like, oh, woe is me. This is horrible. I'm dying. I'm going to die. I'm not going to recognize my family. And that kind of stress, that kind of depression pulls you down like a bullet. You need to get rid of the stress in your life as much as possible. None of us can totally get rid of it, but you need to lower your stress. You need to have a purpose. There's no reason to get out of bed if you have no purpose in life. So find purpose, find something you can get involved in. Enjoy nature, kayaking, walking, hiking are all just excellent ways to open your mind. And it's nothing like going outside and smelling the fresh air and watching the birds and all that stuff. And then the other thing I think that is important is learn strategies. Pay attention to what increases your dementia symptoms. What is it that caused you to have a meltdown, or I call it dementia days? What put you in that position? And how can you try and change life so that doesn't happen again? What changes can you make to avoid those stressors that cause you irritation?
Chuck, you close this one out.
I have to agree with everything that Mark and Lori said. When you manage what we're going through, every person is different. What's important to me inside is not what's important to Lori or Mark. It's so individual, and a lot of the things he has on there, that's great for overall health, but I know who I am. Am I going to become a vegan and eat plant products? No, I'm not. I'm a carnivore. So have I modified myself a little bit? Yes. I don't have steak that often, but I still have it. Do I have hamburgers that often? No, but I still have them. And I think one of the most important things is by doing things that make you happy, and not just locking yourself up and says, well, I'm not going to try to do anything anymore. You have to challenge yourself. Like Lori said, have a purpose. And the purpose doesn't have to be big. If you just like going out and working in the garden, then do that. Continue to do that. If you like to read as long as you can. If you enjoy being with your grandkids, be with them, enjoy them. And I think stress management is probably one of the most important things there. And one of those steps to me, would be an early diagnosis so that you can be proactive with what happens in your life. Your family can be proactive with what happens in your life. And everybody's not reactive, because when somebody sees that we stumble during the day or we're having a bad day, a lot of times they'll panic and all of that fear comes in. But if you've talked about it, if they understand it and they can help prevent it or lessen it, and it takes all that stress and fear away, and takes that stress can increase our symptoms tenfold. And so by being less stressful and doing what works for you, what do you really like doing? What just would get you up in the morning to go do? Mine happens to be golf. I don't play the way I used to. Like I think Lori mentioned, you don't do the things the way you used to do them, but you can still do them. And that part of for those 4 hours you're out playing, for me, going out playing golf, I don't think about what's wrong. And one of the biggest things on stress is mine was anger. And I would get so angry at myself for doing things wrong. And finally, Bobby, my wife, came up and says, you have to stop doing this. It's not your fault. It's not you that's doing it. So we got Chucky. Chucky is right here. It's a little gorilla in a flight suit. And I've had that little gorilla for about 35 years. And his name is Chucky. And that's my disease. And when I have a bad day and Chucky is around and doing what he does, I really can't control that, but I can control how I react to it. It takes that stress away, that I'm not thinking that I'm doing this stuff on purpose and how can I stop? Because I can't stop. And I think it's been mentioned before, dementia is a progressive disease. It's going to get progressively worse. And that's what you kind of need to understand, and understand your limitations and test those limitations. Don't be afraid to fail. If I'm having a bad day, just help me through. Maybe it's just if we're at a place that's too busy, we leave. Just simple things like this, or don't go there in the first place because it's going to be too busy. And that's when you're proactive. And the supplements and medication, there really is not a medication for dementia. There are things that help with symptoms, and if you look over the counter of the supplements that's supposed to enhance brain health and do this and do that, if you took all those, you'd be taking 100 to 200 pills a day. But I think it's so individual that it has to come from within. You have to make that decision that, something, I don't care what's going to happen today. I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a smile on my face, and I'm going to attack the day and do whatever, what I need to do today. And if it doesn't work, okay, then I'll do the same thing tomorrow. And whatever helps you. And that's one thing I've learned from Mark and Lori and all the people I've met with dementia is everybody, we're on the same journey, but everybody is on a different path. And it's their path, and it's their family's path. And I think by working with family and having them understand what's going on, that's how you reduce the stress in the entire family. Because I've always called it, dementia is a family disease. It's going to affect every single person in your family. So why not bring them all in and go from the mindset that, you know something, I really shouldn't do this. I can't do that. I'm just not going to do anything, and change that to, you know something, I want to do this. Now let's figure out a way how. I think is really important.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, what I hear you saying is that everybody is an individual and has their own journey to take. This is true for all people, those with dementia and with not. And it's important that we know ourselves, but then that we stay connected to those people around us and the world, because that's our strength, to get us the security to make choices so that we can continue to have meaning and purpose and growth in our lives. Well, I would like for us to move on to one just really brief film clip. John Azizal, who is the founder of I'm Still Here Foundation and the Hearthstone Institute, just nicely summarizes what you all have said.
Now, if it's to change your life and eat better, sleep longer, have less stress, do more exercise, and maintain purpose in your life, I'm all in favor. But I don't need to know I have a chance of dementia to do those 5 things. We should do those 5 things anyway. And that's the best thing we have to put off dementia in the future and to live better with it whenever it appears.
Engagement is the great treatment.
Now, if it...
Okay. So now I would like for us to close our program. Well, not quite close, but close to it, end up our film clips with looking at some film clips from 2 of my dear friends, Jennifer Carson, who is the director of dementia engagement at the University of Nevada and a DA board member, and Dr. Al Power, who is a geriatrician, author, and educator.
Dementia doesn't strip a person of their essential humanity. There's so much more to who we are as human beings than our cognitive function. And if people can embrace all of those other aspects of what it means to be a human being, I think they can more readily live well with dementia.
And I believe that one of the biggest and most ignored human rights for people living with dementia is the right to have hope, to be able to live life positively, meaningfully, as fully as possible.
So I would like to thank you all for being with us today and hearing our wise panelists share with you. I hope that their insight will help you see beyond Alzheimer's what you can do if you've already watched it, and that it will pique your interest to go ahead and watch it if you have not yet done that. So I'm going to turn to our panelists one more time for some closing comments, because I think they all want to leave you with a particular message. Mark, once again, you're unmuted, so let's start with you.
Thank you, Jen. Well, you know, the subject line of today is what you can do. And I want people listening to leave with these 2 points. We, the people living with any form of dementia, Alzheimer's or any form of dementia, we can still do. Dr. Debbie mentioned, made a comment about her patients doing well. We can still do, we just often need to adapt. And that's a word I use a lot when I'm speaking or counseling with people who are newly diagnosed with dementia, is that you just need to find ways to, you can still do the things you love a lot of times. You just need to find ways to adapt. So we can still do, we just need to adapt. And the other message I would like to leave with the guests today is kind of a warning. Be real careful of generalizations and stereotypes when it comes to people living with dementia. There's a line you hear a lot in the dementia community. If you've met one person with dementia, that's all you've met. That's all you've done is met one person with dementia. Like Chuck said, everybody's path is different. Everybody's treatment is different. Everybody's response to types of treatment or types of stimuli is going to be different, and the red flags should go up when you hear people talking in generalized terms, because dementia is not a generalized condition. Thank you.
Chuck?
I think what I like to leave with the message with the guest is that I agree with everything that Mark said, but also that you're not alone. There's an army of people out here with every form of dementia that you can believe. And we're all striving, we're all working, and we can help. We can help each other. So, stay involved, contact, there are so many groups out there that do so great things, and every group offers a little bit something different. Find out what works for you and become involved. You don't have to be a public speaker like we are, but if you want to, that's great. But be an advocate for you. It is internal with you. You make those decisions. And when you're around other people that have that ability and do that, then that makes it that much better.
Ori?
Thank you. And we've covered a lot today, and I mentor people right now. I'm mentoring 3 different people. And these are basically people that were newly diagnosed, and they're like, oh my goodness, what do I do now? And I like to tell them 6 things. Number 1, most important thing you can do is find a purpose, find a reason that you want to get out of bed. Number 2 is get involved with other people living with dementia, as we've all talked about. Learn from them, from their experiences, from their strategies, and find encouragement from them. 3rd, learn the factors that impact your dementia, what makes it worse. And 4th, I tell them, you've got to live in the moment, live in right now. Today is a great day. Today I can speak. I don't have aphasia. I can speak today. And that may change later on today, but right now I'm living in the moment for right now. I also tell them, focus on all your abilities that you can still do. Focus on the good things that you can still do. And stay active. Staying active is so important. There will be challenges. There will be times when life is just really tough and you want to cry, you want to scream, you want to punch someone. That's why you need the support of others. But there also can be really good times if you let your attitude focus on those. My motto is, I don't want just to survive. I want to thrive. Thank you for giving us the time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, my message would be that although Alzheimer's disease is a life-changing diagnosis, there are things that you can do to make life better. And I think that Chuck and Lori and Mark have done a wonderful job in highlighting and giving some examples about the things that they do to make their lives better. My other little slide disappears, so I'm just going to go back to that. I want to tell you that we enjoyed being with you today. If you have any further questions, if you would like to get involved with the Dementia Action Alliance, we invite you to do so. Or if you would like to access the many, many free resources that we have, you can do that at our website, which is daanow.org. And I know that Melissa is going to send that to you, so you don't need to write it down. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn the program back over to Melissa for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jan, Mark, Lori, Chuck. I think just what you have done today is really help, I think, change that narrative for a lot of people that are watching, whether they themselves have been diagnosed with dementia, whether they are a care provider, a doctor. If those doctors that initially diagnosed you could see you now, that's the only thing I would say based on your experiences. If they could just see you now, you've totally proven them wrong. And I think everybody here, and even myself, you know, as you said, it's sort of that initial diagnosis, and then it's kind of, you know, off you go. I could have lunch or tea with all of you and not even realize or understand or know that you had dementia unless you told me. So that is a testament to what you have been able to do when the doctors told you otherwise. And I think that it's just a strong statement and a strong message that you are sending people, again, changing that narrative. So we have about 12 minutes remaining in our webinar. This is a good time to get those questions in, everybody. We do have one that came in and a couple more. So I will throw these out to the panel, and whoever wants to answer, feel free. So we'll start with this one from Anonymous. How do you work as a caregiver with someone who doesn't want to admit that they are in the early stages of dementia?
We get, surprisingly, we get that question quite a bit. I think what needs to be done is, you know, sit down with that person, and not just one-on-one, a family sit down and have a list of things that are going wrong, and not do it as a confrontational thing. Well, you're doing this and you're doing this, but sit down and say, you know, we're concerned because this is happening. I know when my wife did that to me, I had no idea all the things that I was doing until we sit and talked about it. And maybe it won't work the first time, but keep coming back and says, you know, this is getting progressively worse a little bit. You're doing this now, and this is happening, and this is happening, you know, but do it in a loving way and tell them that you're doing this because you're worried for them. You know, and try not to make it confrontational, but just, if it doesn't work the first time, then do it again and do it again, as long as it takes to help them understand, because this disease is so scary that a lot of people, even at the mention of it, will freeze up, and let them know that, you know, it's okay, that we can do this together. And I think that will help a lot.
Yeah, and again, for those of you who want to ask a question, we have all lines, audio and video lines muted. So the way to ask your questions today is to go down to your Q&A box, type your questions out there, and we'll be happy to read that to the panel. So guys, let me throw a question out here to you. And again, anybody can answer. If someone is newly diagnosed with dementia, just very recent, they're scared, they don't know where to turn, they've been given the same diagnosis that your doctors gave you, told them, you know, no literature, no nothing, just go make your bucket list. What would you say to that individual in those early stages?
Melissa, first I want to continue on with what Chuck was saying, because he made some great points. But another thing to remember, and I had to deal with this where I had to try and convince someone they had dementia when they said, no, I don't. When you're having memory issues, balance issues, confusion, it's not necessarily dementia. It could also be other things. And that's where it's important to go and get checked. Could be medications that you're taking. It could be an allergy or something wrong with your heart or other things. So that's where it's important to explain to the person, I'm concerned for you. Just, we need to make sure there's nothing else wrong. But on the question of someone newly diagnosed, I deal with newly diagnosed people a lot. And that's hard because first thing, when you're first diagnosed, you're going to go through a period of grief over all the things you've lost. You'll go through a period of depression frequently, anger. Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? And at some point, you need to get past that, kick yourself in the tush and say, I'm coming out of it and I'm gonna live. I'm going to live. And that's where the best way to do that is get involved with other people with dementia. Let them help you walk through that. That was a turning point for my life. I met a group of people living with dementia, and I was like, wow, in spite of what the doctor said, I'm not the only person in the world under 65 who has dementia. Holy crap, look at all these people. And that's an important thing because then you can really learn from them and get encouragement from them.
Mark?
Right. Exactly what Chuck and Laurie said. And if I can kind of build on an analogy that I think it was Chuck made earlier in this webinar, you know, that we're all on the same journey, but we're all on different paths. But we learn not to be on that path alone by getting involved with support groups and organizations with other people living with dementia. And once you get by the grieving process that Laurie so vividly explained, it's important to realize that you can be on that path, that you're on this journey, and your path might be different than my path or Laurie's path or Chuck's path, but there are enough people, if you become connected with a support group, there's enough people there that you're not walking your path alone.
Another question for the panel, and I think, but you know, these webinars are created to help other people, right? So if we have maybe one thing, the top thing that you do or have done since your initial diagnosis from then to now that you feel has helped you the most through that dementia, living your life day to day the way you want to, what would that one thing be? I know there's a lot of different things, but as Chuck mentioned, it's very individual, right? This is a very sort of individual disease where everybody's a little bit different. But what would you say that one thing would be if you could pass that along to somebody else?
Finding a purpose in life.
I love that one.
And getting involved with other people with dementia.
And I think a big one would be stay connected, stay involved on if not a daily basis, at least a weekly basis with meeting somebody. Because I remember the first time I walked into a support group, I was like, Lori, I thought I was the only one that had it, and that I was going to be in a nursing facility, you know, within 6 months. And I walked into that room and there were people there that had been there for 4, 6, 10, 12 years. And for the first time since my diagnosis, I had a glimmer of hope that, you know, if they can do it, why can't I? And I think that is what is so important, is find some way to give people hope.
I love that so much. And maybe too, you know, when people hear dementia, you know, it comes kind of that elephant in the room. Nobody wants to address it. So what is maybe the biggest misconception, the top misconception people seem to have when they meet you and they find out that you have dementia?
They don't think I have dementia.
I thought that might be one of the answers. Yeah.
You don't look like you have dementia. You look too young to have dementia. And I'd say, oh, really? How old do you have to have dementia? or you don't look like you have dementia. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
I usually come and that is something we all get frequently. Well, you don't look like you have dementia. Do I now? But I think for me, my comeback is hopefully I don't look like I have irritable bowel syndrome either, but I do. It's kind of that is the biggest stigma. But if I look back to when I was first diagnosed, why was I so afraid? Why was I grieving so much? Because that's what I thought dementia looked like as well. And you know what I've learned differently? I've learned I can still live.
Chuck?
I think I'm like Mark. I've been asked so many times, well, you don't look like it. And my comeback is, I've been tested. I do have it. But then I open a conversation and I use a sense of humor, and having people relaxed, then they start asking, and it's so intriguing. What were your symptoms? And, I've lost my keys. I've done this, and, I forget this, I forget that. And I said, that's fine. I said, what do you love to do? What do you love to do in your off time that you've done your entire life? What if you forgot how? And you couldn't do it the way you used to? That's what dementia is. It's not being forgetful. It's not forgetting somebody's name or where you put your car keys or things like this. It's an actual terminal brain disease. And I think people need to understand, because the face of dementia used to be an 80-year-old person sitting over in the corner. Now the face of dementia is us. We are the face of it.
And I oftentimes will say to people, dementia isn't forgetting where you put your keys. To me, I knew something was wrong when I looked at my keys and I couldn't remember what to do with them. Dementia isn't walking into a room and going, why did I walk in here? Dementia is walking into a room where you've lived for 27 years and saying, where am I? What room is this? And fortunately, those moments aren't all the time. But just like most people don't lose their keys all the time, we don't have moments of confusion and disorientation all the time. But when we do, it's different than losing our keys. It's not knowing what to do with them once we have them.
Right. If I can add to that too, dementia isn't forgetting why you walked into the room or, why you left the house. One example for me would be dementia is me wondering where my wife is. Well, my wife died in 2008. That's dementia.
Yeah, those are great examples. We get feel a lot of questions with people wondering, do I have dementia? Because I'm forgetting these things. But I think that is spot on. Those examples are spot on and can help our viewers who are watching now. We are winding down this webinar. Jody chimed in and said, you all seem fine, not at all like my mom. And Jody, I think as you realize today by hearing this panel that it is each individual is different and their journey is different. And so I'm sorry to hear that your mom is struggling through this journey. But this is why we have these webinars, so that everybody can understand a little bit better about dementia. And it's not talked about as often as some other diseases. And it sort of just kind of seems to be something we put to the wayside. And that's unfortunate, from medical care to people in general trying to understand what this is all about. So we do thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Now, Stephanie chimed in here at the last minute, and Jan, maybe you can help answer this question. Where can we find support groups? We've heard that is the number one way to attack this. What's the best place, maybe beyond DAA, that people can go to find support?
Probably the other panelists are better at answering this than I, because they run those support groups. But DAA is a really good source. You could also look at your local Alzheimer's and dementia support centers, because many communities have those local groups that have support groups, or through a local area on aging. Those would be some good places to start searching for the support group. DAA has wonderful virtual support groups, and they are fantastic because they're so accessible. But some people, we all miss that in-person piece too. So Lori, Chuck, and Mark, can you give Melissa some additional guidance about where to find those support groups?
Well, before Laurie or Chuck, I don't have any kind of a list off the top of my head, but before maybe Chuck or Laurie might be able to suggest some, I just want to point out that, you know, there are good support groups, there are bad support groups. There are support groups that are a right fit for one person that aren't a right fit for the other. You know, you need to find out which ones are a good fit for you. In my personal opinion, the best support groups are the ones that have people living with dementia playing an active role in the running of that said support group. You know, because again, people living with dementia, we're the experts. You know, we're the ones that can offer the most support because we know what you're going through.
I think another aspect would be, I work a lot with Dementia Friendly Nevada, and you have Dementia Friendly America, and some states have really developed their dementia friendly systems. And besides DAA, there's Dementia Mentors, there's Dementia Action International, there's Dementia Minds. There's a lot of groups out there, but Mark hit it right on the head. You need to find one that works for you, because I've been to some where I ended up leaving because I didn't like what they were doing. And other ones, I can't get enough of them. So we have to find out what specifically works for you.
Say, if you go to daanow.org, connect with us, you can see a list of our dementia discussions, our discussion groups that we have. They're all virtual, just like this is today, so you can join those. We also have 5 days a week, we have a virtual engagement program that people living with dementia can get involved in. It's poetry club, book club, exercise, music, beat, and trivia, all kinds of things you can get involved in. Chuck mentioned Dementia Mentors. DementiaMentors.org is one I suggest, especially if you're newly diagnosed, because they'll set you up with a mentor who can help you through it. So they're also a good program. There are other ones, and let me also tell you, DAA's programs are mostly educational. All of our groups are educational. Dementia Mentors has a lot that are just social. They just come together and laugh and talk, and just like they're at a coffee clutch. So there are good virtual programs out there, and you just find which one you feel comfortable with, or more than one.
More than one, yeah.
A lot of us are in more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, Jan, Mark, Lori, Chuck, everyone at Dementia Action Alliance, who we love so much, thank you very much for being with us today to share your experiences living with dementia. We appreciate you educating all of us. You are the again, changing that narrative. You are the key to sort of unlocking what it's like to live with dementia. Forget the doctors. Let's talk to the people who are living with it day to day. And that is you. And we do thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Now, for all of you watching, you will receive a link to this webinar tomorrow. Also in that email, you will receive a link to the movie we've talked about today, Alzheimer's, What You Can Do. You will have access to the full film in that link, and you'll be able to rewatch it as well as the clips that we, of course, showed today. You will also receive the link to Dementia Action Alliance. So again, you don't have to write all this down. We've got you covered. You'll get that email tomorrow. Feel free to share that with your friends and family members. Also, you can watch more of our videos all about senior living, also about dementia, at www.seniorlivinglive.com. They are on demand and you can watch them anytime. Of course, all of our content is free. As always, we thank you so much for being a part of our conversation today and watching Senior Living Live. Have a great day, everybody.